All right, I think we are live once more. Everything seems to be working at my end, so please let me know if there's some problem or something like that. Last week of the course has come and gone by. It's been a nice ride this year's iteration of the course, I think, and today I will try to talk a little bit about what lies ahead and maybe some things to think about when you are doing your models and diagrams in the future. So as you probably have noticed, the deadlines for handing in all the assignments have been postponed for 2 days, so it's on Sunday instead of Friday, so you have a little more time if you want to. But hopefully you won't need it that much. I also made a small mistake in the date for the last exam and wrote 13th of November instead of October. But of course the third attempt was today, and I will also add a fourth attempt in November then. So we already have that fixed, I think. All right. What lies ahead? You should have received a course evaluation. Of course, you should fill that in as soon as possible and tell us what you think about the course, what can be improved, and what has been good and should be kept. This year, I think there has been some challenges. Of course, being a fully distance-based course has been challenging for you campus students. And that's of course something you can talk about if you want to. For me personally, it has actually probably been a bit easier to focus on off-campus teaching entirely and not have to mix these two modes of teaching has been beneficial, I think, at least for me. But please let me know what you think. So fill in the course evaluation in your mail. You have probably gotten a link. You should have gotten a link in your student email, so fill it in. and tell us what you think. All feedback is welcome. If you don't prefer to do that, you can also contact me on Slack or something like that if there's something you would like to say about the course. As you probably know, we are still in the process of assessing Workshop 2. I hope that we will end this next week, so you can get some feedback and your grades there. So plan for complementary changes should be due week 48 if the plan holds. And for this Workshop 2, I think it should hold. Next week is more or less free for me, so I can focus more on assessment for Workshop number 2, and that should be wrapped up by next week, I hope. Workshop number 3, the deadline is on Sunday then. I hope this will be finished by week 47, so you should get your grades then, and possibly plan for complementary changes then week 49. This is of course a little bit more insecure dates than for workshop number 2, but in general workshop number 3 is a little bit easier to assess. It's not that much to look at. High grades, I hope also that they will be finished by the end of week 47. Traditionally there are not a lot of submissions for the higher grades, so they usually can be handled quite quickly. So for this you can also plan for possible complementary changes by week 49. And as I said, the test is scheduled the next chance to do that in November, the end of November. So that is what lies ahead. So if you go for the passing grades, you should have a grade by week 48 if everything works out. All right. That is what lies ahead in the course. Then this will be posted on the course homepage also and in Slack, so you can always keep up there. If there are any changes or any problems, I will let you guys know as soon. Maybe I mentioned this a little bit last week. There is a little bit of a special grading in workshop number 2. As normal, you have the 1, i.e. you have failed the assignment and you need to resubmit. You need to do some fixes and you need to resubmit in my Moodle. And the same thing if you have the 2, you have passed the assignment. So that's the same. And we have this middle grade, 1.5. And that is that you have maybe a few problems or some minor problems in your design. And in this case, I would like to just meet with you and talk about this. And so if you get the 1.5, check the feedback. Prepare by, for example, updating your diagrams. There are some people that have mainly issues in the diagrams, so I would like to know that you can create a UML diagram that corresponds to the implementation. So do that and look at the problems we have found in your solution and think about the solution to these problems. In some cases, maybe it's the easiest to just fix the code. In some cases, you can just do some notes and prepare a solution, a conceptual solution for this. And you book a meeting with me and we will discuss this solution. So that's kind of like a lightweight fail, or how you would like to see it. So I just want to check that you have understood the problems that you have more or less. And for this 1.5, then you don't need to resubmit in Moodle. If you for some reason prefer to resubmit, you can do that instead of booking a meeting. But I would probably it will probably be faster to just book a meeting with me and we take 15 minutes and take a look at it. So that's a little bit special about workshop number 2 grading, and I will post this also in Moodle when we grade the assignment. All right. One thing that has come to surface a little bit when tutoring this week has been that the diagram for the class diagram for workshop number 3 is not a perfect match of the code, and this is true. There is when doing diagrams, you always need to think about what is the purpose of the diagram. So in workshop number 2, you did more or less a complete reverse engineering diagram of your implementation. Very detailed, every possible relation should be there. It should be more or less perfect and a perfect match to the implementation. Such diagrams for the workshop number 2, we want to see that you can create a diagram like this, that you have the UML to implementation knowledge, and such very detailed diagrams can be very useful for example, seeing how refactoring should be done and what's actually connected. See what parts can we reuse. If we change some part, are there chances that other parts are affected by this change? And this could be nice to know, for example, if we need to retest certain parts of our system more thoroughly, maybe because we have made a change in some part of the system and this might affect some other part. Then we need these very detailed diagrams. However, as you probably noticed, it's quite tedious to do them for a complete system, and you probably need some type of reverse engineering too. And diagrams themselves become quite hard to take a look at because there are so many dependencies often, and it becomes very messy, the layout, and it's hard to do this. And it's more or less impossible to do such detailed diagrams for a large system, maybe with 1,000 classes or something like that. You can just imagine how that would look, and it's very hard to derive any useful knowledge from that. So usually, if you do such very detailed diagrams, you focus on a smaller part of the system. Maybe you have some sense that, oh, this part is not that well designed, it feels awkward to work with, so maybe we should just sit down, look at the code, take 1 hour and create a very detailed class diagram for this little part of the system, and then we can maybe use this to discuss refactoring or something like that of that small part. And as I said, such detailed diagrams are quite bad for knowledge transfer. You cannot really give that type of diagram to someone else and expect that they will get any useful value from it, really. So in that case, it's more actually doing the modeling itself that's valuable. In the diagram you have in workshop number 3 is more focused towards knowledge transfer. So I want to show you the basic parts of the system and how they are connected. So in this case, we focus on the important relations, and knowing the important relations is, of course, something that is very hard to just do on the top of your head. So this is something that comes with experience. What is important in a design and what is not that important. So, for example, in this class diagram, it's this one. More or less everything is dependent on card, but there are very few dependencies to card actually. I have the important associations here from the player and from the deck, and maybe the most important dependency from the view type. So you can see that, okay, this card type is not internal, it's actually used also in other components or other modules in this system. But many of the classes depend on card also. For example, the different types of rules use the card for different types of things. So it is almost like this card class is a primitive data type in the context of the blackjack game, and that is not really surprising. It's a card game, so it's not surprising that a lot of the other classes would depend on cards. So as it's not this surprise, I decided to remove a lot of these dependencies because they would just block the view of the other important things that I also want to show. Another thing to note in this diagram is the rule factory. And the rule factory is supposed to create one rule variation for the different types of rules that you have. So it creates one concrete class, for example, the international new game strategy. So technically it's actually just dependent on one of these at a time. But for the sake of understanding that, okay, you are supposed to choose one of these, and at any point in time the rules factor could become dependent on one or the other, I decided to add both the dependencies, even though the source code technically only has one dependency at a time. So you can also add dependencies to enhance understanding, not just remove. And this is also something that you need to kind of like learn with experience. So this was a common question during my tutoring sessions, and it is a little bit of a art of diagramming, knowing what you can leave out and what is actually useful. It's not that easy to just say it's always this and or it's always that. Good tool support is of course nice to have in this case. Good tools are, however, not that common, and especially if you to iterate your code really quickly, doing this manually is too laborsome. To keep a detailed version of the system at all times can be quite hard. So keep that in mind when you do your diagrams, or when you look at the diagram. What is the purpose of the diagram? So should we have this more general view of things, or do we need to really focus on the exact parts of some smaller part of a bigger system, depending on what we want to use the diagram for? I usually say that the modeling is everything and the diagram is really nothing. So in the future you will probably not encounter such hard rules for doing diagrams. Diagrams tend to become more of sketches in reality, and it's actually the act of looking at the code or thinking about the implementation or the design and doing some sketches that is important, because the thinking and the creativity in designing is what matters, and not the actual diagram afterwards. Those diagrams tend to be quite short-lived in contact with reality. So that is something to think about also, that we have been quite thorough and quite detailed in the course, and that's good because you are new at this, so it's better to have strict rules in the beginning, and you can become a little bit more relaxed as you gain more experience, and maybe you don't even need to do the diagrams. You can just talk with your fellow developers about design at a higher level of abstraction, and not need to write everything down all the time, at least. All right. So finally, I would like to say thank you. I think this iteration of the course has been really interesting. It's been super nice to have met with you over these weeks. I hope that you have learned something during the course and that you can think a little bit more about how you should structure your implementation, so that you actually do design in every little decision that you make, and that you try to apply these principles and patterns in upcoming projects that you have, and maybe even in your projects that you do for yourself. I think that's the best way to learn this. The course is a little bit of a, you get a little nibble of everything, and you need to go deeper in your own thinking and in your own projects. That's how you can really become good at this stuff. All right, are there any final questions? I don't really see anything in the chat right now. So that being said, I hope you learned something and that you are a better developer now than you were when you entered the course. And with that said, best of luck with the future courses, and a happy Halloween if you're into that sort of thing also. If you submit, no, you need to submit for the higher grades by November 1st. We need to end this course sometime, I guess. All right. Good luck, guys, with the future courses, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.